to all the nursing students out there, it is a really, really long, really, really tough journey. But when you become a nurse, it is definitely, definitely worth it. I could not see myself doing anything else. Every time I see a nursing student, it is a positive experience to me. Do not let a nurse who is having a negative day or a negative frame of mind impact who you want to be and where you want to go in life, because the world needs more nurses. No one lives forever, and people are chronically and always sick. So do not give up on your dream. You will get there, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Demolish the NCLEX with free prep courses at nrsngacademy.com. Hundreds of hours of HD video and dozens of cheat sheets. Never guess on an NCLEX question again. Free for life and available on any device. nrsngacademy.com is your free ticket to RN. Don't waste hundreds of dollars on NCLEX prep, and don't be the 19% that fails the first time around. Get started for free today at nrsngacademy.com.
Hey guys, it's John here with the nrsng.com podcast. Today I'm just really excited to bring to you Nurse Nacole. Hopefully you've heard of Nurse Nacole. If you haven't yet, then I highly suggest you check out this podcast as well as her YouTube channel and her blog. You can find those both at Nurse Nacole, Nacole. And this was just such a fun conversation, and we talked for about an hour, but I would highly suggest that you listen to the whole podcast. She has a ton of just amazing information for nurses and nursing students. She is currently in a DNP program, as well as working full-time and pursuing various certifications. She just has such a passion for nursing, and we really have a lot of the same viewpoints on nursing, so it was so much fun to talk to her. And I've listened to this podcast episode a couple times myself, and each time I kind of grab new nuggets of information. So I really suggest you listen to this whole thing. Take a minute, go for a walk, listen on your way to work or whatever, wherever you're at. Just listen to this whole thing, take some notes, and I know you're going to learn a lot from Nurse Nacole today. So with that in mind, just thanks for checking out the episode. If you have a minute, head over to iTunes and give us a comment in there, and visit Nurse Nacole on YouTube and on her blog. So thanks for joining me today. Today I am with Nurse Nacole. A lot of you have probably heard of her from YouTube. She has about 23,000 subscribers on YouTube, about 20,000 subscribers on Facebook. She also blogs over at nursenacole.com, and she was recently named one of the Scrubs magazine Nurseanalities.
Woohoo!
So thanks for joining me today.
No problem.
I also noticed on her blog too, so it's kind of hard to say her full name with her credentials, because she's Nurse Nacole, RN, BSN, BLS, ACLS, PCCN, CCRN, TNCC, CMC. Did I miss one?
No, I think that's it. That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough for now, right? So she's definitely an advocate for education and everything. And I thought she'd just be a wonderful person to talk to, because she's doing a lot with her career. So again, thanks for joining me today.
No problem. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself outside of nursing. Who are you? What do you like to do, etc.?
I am Nacole, obviously. 33-year-old. I have a lovely son. His name is Rocco. He's 18 months, going at 18 years old. He bosses me and my husband around like crazy. I don't know how young folks do this with children. Oh, my God. It's like I'm losing a battle every day. Either he's making a scene in public, or he's making a scene at home, or he's throwing food. It's like, oh, my gosh. I thought nursing was bad. Oh, I don't know how nurses do pediatrics with children.
No kidding.
How do you make them be still to check their ears?
Like, or you never get away from the kids. You have kids at home and you go to work with kids.
Or you have 4 or 5 kids. I don't know how it works.
Exactly.
He's a great little guy. I've been married for 11, 12 years, seems like a decade. My husband tolerates me and my shenanigans. If I'm not videotaping on YouTube in the living room, I love making cookies. That's my kind of new hobby. I'm really terrible at it, so there's always like icing everywhere. And then I'm trying to mix colors that don't look like the colors that I'm trying to make. Like I tried to make a pumpkin, but the orange was like purplish. I don't know. I know the color charts, and when you mix colors, what colors happen. But
it doesn't work in real.
Off. Like the execution's off.
So are these like Pinterest fails type of thing?
Yes, just total fails. Yeah. Or I forget to put butter in the cookies so it tastes gross. I'm really trying to be like homemaker/nurse. I'm better at the nurse part than the homemaker
Working on the
part.
homemaker, yeah.
But my husband appreciates my quirks. I appreciate him. We live in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
I'm born and raised here. Actually, I was born in Kissimmee, Florida, which is by Disney. So I really didn't go too far from my hometown, but I love Florida. It is full of transient people, so no one's from here. So you get to meet people from all kinds of places. Yeah. On top of the whole Disney and Universal kind of draw that brings tourists in. No one's from here. Everyone has different backgrounds and languages, and it's just a really good place, I think, to raise a kid. So I love this place.
You love it. Well, that's good. Yeah, it sounds like you have a ton on your plate. I mean, with school and are you still working full time as well?
Yeah, I started NP school. I found out I was admitted into NP school as soon as I found out I was pregnant because I was going to do one at a time.
Yeah.
And you know how life works. They're like, no
thanks.
Just going to mess that up on you. So I started my first semester when I found out I was pregnant. And then I was like, after my son, I'll go part-time, just lower hours and da-da-da. And then, life gets at you and you're like, oh, wait, we need both paychecks. Okay, we can't do that. So we both have to work full-time. Luckily, I work at night, so it's not as stressful as day shift nursing.
Yeah.
And I only work on weekends, so my husband's home to watch our son. So we kind of save money on daycare.
That's perfect. Yeah, so your husband works all day?
He works Monday through Friday. I work Friday to Sunday.
Okay.
So we barely see each other on the weekend, but during the week we kind of have that good quality time together with our son. So.
Oh my goodness! So then you guys just switch off who watches him and everything like that.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, we did that for a little while. It's tough.
It's very tough.
It's very tough. And then the night shift, like I assumed. I mean, I knew night shift was going to be tough when I came out of nursing school. Just like like adjusting to being a day person and a night person watching kids. But I didn't realize it's really tough. It takes me a day to kind of recover coming out of a night shift.
Oh yes. I can't do like work one day off and then work because one day off is a waste.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a complete wash. You don't get any sleep. Either I stay awake the whole day to try to get back reset, or I sleep the whole day, so nothing is really productively done.
And do you work in like a larger hospital or?
I do. I work in a larger hospital, so there's more, I guess, shifts available because not everybody likes working the night shift.
Yeah.
But it's still the night shift. So I meant when I'm awake, my entire house is sleeping, and then when I get home, my son wakes up.
So I'm home.
So he wants to be up and play, and I'm like exhausted. Like I barely made it home. I'm tired.
It's hard. It's hard because I would get home right when my kids were waking up. They were doing their reading with mom and drinking their bottles, and I show up and I'm pass out on the floor, and they're wanting to wrestle and stuff. But it's
and you can't even be any help. Like I come home,
I'm worthless.
Did you watch Rocco? I'm like, dude, I'm tired. I can't do it. I just need food and I need to go to sleep. That's it. That's all I can have right now.
For a while, actually, I live in a town with like all my siblings live here and stuff. So I have a sister that doesn't have any kids. For a while, I would go over and sleep in her house because I had a hard time even getting used to sleeping during the daytime. It was a huge adjustment.
Rough. Yeah.
So
because everything happens during the day. Like I didn't believe that until I started. There's people mowing lawns. There's kids yelling.
Dogs.
There's people checking mail. There's ducks moving on the grass. I'm like, why is everything in the world moving right now?
Well, that's great. So, I mean, you really have a lot going on. So tell me a little bit about who you are as a nurse, kind of where you work, and your journey into nursing.
My journey into nursing started out really, really young. I was involved in a drunk driver accident, I think when I was 10 or 12. And I didn't know what medical care was or what a nurse was, but the people who took care of me were nurses, and I ended up getting a really nice teddy bear, and I remembered their names, and that was just something that stuck in my memory when I was older of what I wanted to be. You go through your growing pains where you want to be this and you want to be that, and this was always something on the back burner. And when I was laid off in my early 20s, my husband was like, if this is something that you always wanted to do, why don't you just do it and quit trying to be the next secretary after the next secretary? And I was like, okay. So I went to community college for a couple of years. I wanted to get all my prereqs out of the way, and I finally got accepted into a nursing program that didn't have a waiting list because in Orlando it is very competitive. Whether it's ADN or BDN, just to get into a program is very competitive and very expensive. So I finally got in. I wasn't working at the time, so that was a blessing. At least I got that little time off. I graduated with my BSN a year and a half ago, I think, and now I'm going for my doctorate, and I should be done with that in a year and a half.
Wow.
You never stop learning. I feel like I'm a forever student, but I feel like once I get to that point, I will be satisfied. I'm just one of those people that I can't stop and pause because I know myself. And if I pause, I'm not going to get back.
Hard to get
Especially
it all
with the
going
kid
again.
now, I can barely do my assignments. I know if I take a break, that'll just be forever and that'll be done with.
Well, I mean, I want to commend you for doing all that with the kid too, because it's not easy. I mean, I'm I just have my bachelor's right now, but I've been contemplating, CRNA versus NP versus what.
Oh yeah, me too.
And it's I mean, school with kids and night shift and everything else, it's a lot of work. So,
and when you try to
congratulations
explain to
for being able
people,
do
they're like, "No, but you work 3 days a week." My husband's
Yeah.
friends, no, but you only work 3 days a week. I'm like, you don't understand. Have you tried to sit down and read anything with a toddler? It is impossible.
Right.
Whether they're trying to injure themselves, or they're trying to jump on you, or they're trying to spill something, or they're trying to injure themselves again, you have to pay them attention. You don't have the luxury of ignoring them,
Right.
because when it's quiet, something's about to happen.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't get any peace and quiet until usually when my entire family's in bed, and I should probably be sleeping for my clinical day, but I can't because I have to study. So sometimes, like every other, night nurse, sometimes you got to just bite the bullet and just stay awake that day and just study.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get anything done when you're babysitting. It's just not possible.
Right. Exactly.
And the naps are few and far between. They used to be, oh, he's going to take a 2-hour nap. Now it's like 30-minute nap, 15-minute nap, no nap at all. I'm
Right.
like, what is going on?
When I was in nursing school, we had just had our baby while I was in nursing school, and it worked out perfectly while I was in school because, like you said, he slept 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I'd be home all day studying, working on stuff. We'd go on a walk. He'd go back to sleep,
Yeah.
But now, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and it's
Oh my gosh.
I just couldn't even imagine. We have them in daycare now, so I'm able to kind of work
we
on
do
this
too.
stuff while they're at school,
Yeah.
and then when they get home, it's daddy time, But
Yeah. My son's in daycare now. I felt guilty because I'm like, oh, home. And I tried to pick him up, and he's like kicking me in the stomach. I'm like, okay, never mind. He needs to go to daycare.
yeah, it's time.
Yeah, I'll study, and then I'll pick him up at 4 o'clock.
Right.
Because, trying to do that while slightly injured and needing to study, I can't do all that at once.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
I read on
we love our daycare.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh.
I read on your little bio on the Scrubs Mag site that one of the things that kind of brought you into nursing was your Nat and Phys class. That kind of stuck out to me. You said your teacher, maybe Kelly Moore, I guess?
Yes, I love him. Oh my God, he's so great.
That stuck out to me because a Nat and Phys 1 was what kind of moved me into thinking about healthcare. While
Really?
While I was in college, I was a public health major. I was thinking about doing, I don't know, Red Cross, something international health. And then I just randomly took a Nat and Phys and just fell in love with the teacher, fell in love with the course. And I was like, okay, this is where I belong. I got to do something healthcare. And then, as time passed on, I found nursing and stuff. But Nat and Phys,
Me and him
to me
still
was like,
correspond,
that's
and
great.
that class was so difficult for me. And I was like, if this is what nursing is, I don't want to do it because this is ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, you have to know the basics there. This isn't nursing, but you have to know this stuff to
Right.
get to the real kind of meat and potatoes here. Me and him still correspond. He is a great professor. He was a professor at the community college here, Valencia Community College. And he just really solidified to me what nursing was and why it was so important. And of course, physicians and all the other auxiliary team members are important too. But I'm not sure if his wife was a nurse or someone in his family was, but he had a heart of gold when it came to nurses.
That's great.
And he always helped me to remember what the end game was. He's like, yes, knowing these cells aren't that important, but they're going to get you to being a nurse, right?
Absolutely.
So just shut up and study. Don't complain. So I remember that. Just be quiet and just study these structures and these macroplasms and get through the class and just be quiet.
Deal with it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's true too, because I think a Nat and Phys, I mean, they're my favorite class looking back in all of college, I think, including nursing school, because it's just like you learn, because until you understand a Nat and Phys, like what IV fluid to give doesn't make a lot of sense until you understand
That is
osmosis
so
and
true.
all that stuff. And
That is so true.
And so really, I try to tell students that email us all the time, just, really focus on your Nat and Phys, because once you get that, the whole science behind nursing just starts to make sense.
It is so much easier to understand, and you don't get hung up on complex concepts.
Exactly.
Because you have the foundations.
Exactly.
That's so true.
So what are beyond just getting your DNP and everything, what are your plans with nursing? What do you want to do with that? Where do you hope to work, etc.?
Well, my heart is in cardiology because my husband had a heart attack when I was in my nursing program. He, I forget what semester, I think it was 3rd out of the 5 semesters, he had a heart attack.
Wow.
I was a student, so the symptoms were very vague. Like, he had shoulder pain for like a week, and I'm like, shoulder pain?
Oh my gosh.
He's a mechanic, so he probably
Yeah.
pulled something. And apparently he had like a heart attack that
wow.
whole time, and he had a lot of damage, so he had to get a 4-way cabbage.
Oh my gosh.
So he was out of work for 3 months after that, and just going to his appointments and sitting in the surgery room, not in the surgery room, but in the waiting room for like 16 hours. That surgery takes a while to do. And granted, he was 29, but, you know, he smoked and he had all these comorbidities, which didn't really help the situation. With that in mind and taking care of him, and now even as a nurse in the multi-system, I see that a lot of people have cardiovascular issues and comorbidities. And my goal is to either work at a cardiologist's office or at a community center. Because a lot of people need help with just managing kind of chronic issues. Day to day, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of acute issues, which is fine, but they're acute because the chronic issues weren't treated or managed beforehand. And whether it's because of finances or, you know, fit or social support, there's always something that nurses can do in the community. And there are tons of community centers here in the state of Florida that I would not mind working in. So that's where my passion and, you know, my goal is to hopefully work there.
So you'd really like to be kind of maybe more away from the hospital kind of thing and more just
yes I might I don't really see myself ever leaving the hospital because the adrenaline is just so great there. And that's kind of where I've only worked at. But the more and more I talk to people as far as them being discharged from the ICU and you hear the stories, they're all stem back from, well, I had a cardiac issue and I didn't know what kind of meds to take, so I didn't take any. Or I had health care, but then, you know, I lost my insurance. And a lot of people in America, even myself and my husband, you know, we live paycheck to paycheck. You know, nothing is never ever 100% guaranteed. And it just takes kind of that one incident to kind of get you off the rails and have you missing some key components to your health insurance, if at all, in general. So I love the hospital setting, but it's opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of people in the community just lack general health care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the great thing about nurse practitioners and the role that we can play is that, you know, as a nurse practitioner, you can be in the community and you have this deep education, this deep knowledge of what goes on in the hospital, but then being able to take that to a community setting and being able to teach people how to avoid ending up in the ICU or how to, you know, and I think as nurses, in general, we tend to have a very good people skills, I think, with these patients and being able to talk to them and level with them. And we're not the doctor in the white coat that everybody hates. We're the nurse, you know, and people do see us as doing good.
Yeah, because you'll get like a resident or a new nursing student and they're like, I don't understand why he's not taking his medication. And then you ask him and he's homeless. It's like,
exactly.
you have to find out why. Some people really, truly want to listen. They want to follow your instructions, but when it comes to taking Coreg or eating, they're going to eat.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it just comes down to that. And if you don't find them a resource or a kind of a social network or, you know, a house to stay in or, you know, a Goodwill or something for kind of shelter and clothes, they're going to do what they have to do to survive. So unless you intend on giving them support instead of yelling at them, that circle's never going to change.
Absolutely. I think that's spot on. I think that's good for you for getting in there. And I think it would be hard for me to leave kind of the ICU as well. Because it's hard work and everything, but every time I think about, I could slow down and go to work like on a tele floor or something, but it's like,
that's what my husband tells me. He's like, what? My husband tells me all the time, why don't you work at a doctor's office? You know, why don't you slow it down? Since you're in NP school, you know, it'll take the stress off, you know, working full time. I said, listen, I don't know how to explain to you why the ICU is awesome and why I can't do like a 9 to 5. First of all, after 8 hours, like my brain hurts. Like I've done clinicals where I've done like a pediatric office and a doctor's office, and you know you're waiting for patients and they're in the waiting room and you're checking their vital signs, and it's just kind of like, you know, it always plays the same.
Yep.
I can't do that. In ICU, you get your patients, you have no idea what's happening, whether it's a postcode, you need fluids, you need a line. Like the time flies by.
It does.
12 hours flies by. And yeah, I work every weekend, and that's, you know, not the best situation, but it is the fastest weekend I've ever had in my entire life time-wise.
Oh, yeah.
I have the best manager, I have the best coworkers, and I have a team of physicians that trust me to, you know, do things that I know that they'd want without them telling me.
Sure, yeah.
And you don't get that everywhere.
You don't.
It's the ICU. You never know what you're going to get. Last week I had a snake bite and an OBG kind of emergency.
Wow.
Who could have that at a doctor's office? You have colds and like stitches, and that's cool too. But there's a level of I guess obviously acute and critical careness, but there's a level of camaraderie that you don't get in a doctor's office that I well, obviously I haven't worked there. I can't really say that, but there's just a level of acuity that I would definitely miss if I ever left the hospital setting, especially ICU.
Absolutely.
Because I started in PCU, and don't get me wrong, that's cool too, but that also has its kind of cycle of sameness, with the pills and the rounding, and no one's really, really, really sick. My husband's like, you want people really sick? I'm like, I don't want them sick, but if they're gonna be sick, I want them with me.
Yeah, I want to be the one taking care of them. Exactly.
I want to be the one. You're just bossy. I'm like, I know, probably, yes.
I tell people,
I'm bossy. My OCD, I need to label my lines. I have a whole system set up that I need to implement here.
Yep, and I tell people that too. Like I think nurses in general are probably somewhat type A, but a critical care nurse is an incredibly type A personality. Like no one goes in my room unless I know about it. I don't care who it is. Like my eyes on my room, and if I see anybody go in there, like I want to know what happened, how long they're there, what they touched.
What settings did you change?
Yes,
did something run out? If you ran out, why didn't you tell me? Why are you touching stuff?
Don't add volume to my pump unless I know. Yeah.
Yes,
Nothing
because
like
I have a system.
Yes.
If it's 100 mLs, I do 90. When it beeps, I get it, and then I have the other one on the counter.
Yeah.
Don't mess up my system. I have a really good system in place.
It sounds, but that's the good thing about nursing too, is that there's a place for everyone,
Yes.
But the adrenaline junkies that I want, if there's a new stroke or a new car wreck coming in, I want to be in there. I want to be involved. I want to be touching all that,
Yes.
And some people don't like that. That's fine.
No,
but
they
for
don't.
me,
Yeah.
I like that. I like to be in control. I like to know, I want to know where every piece of everything is in my room, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, well, I don't understand. You say you're tired. I'm like, I say I'm tired. Everyone says they're tired. Every nurse is tired. That doesn't mean that I would ever leave the ICU setting. There's just something about that fast-paced, quick decision-making, knowing that your patient inside and out. And I don't know, when I worked on PCU, I was so busy, I didn't really have that background to understand, why my patient was really sick. Yeah, they have COPD, but, what is that on a cellular level? When you're in the ICU, you literally know the whole story. My patient 3 years ago had a, cesarean section. She came in a week ago, and then her daughter came in. You know everything about your patient. You develop a bond with them. You develop a relationship with their family. It's just you know them inside and out. You talk to the doctors. You know the collaborative and medical plan, and it's just something that you don't get anywhere else.
Absolutely. Because
they're so acute, and they can't talk, so you kind of...
You're their voice. I mean,
you're their voice. You're like their
Absolutely.
parent. You know what's best. You want to help them out, and you don't let anybody do anything even remotely negative to them that would impact their kind of medical status.
For sure. Well, I want to talk about that for just 1 second too. I remember in nursing school, one thing they talk about is you shouldn't get connected with your patients. You got to maintain a professional relationship. I mean, there were test questions and things in nursing school about, what's the right answer. The right answer is not doing anything that's going to kind of cause them to, develop a bond with their nurse relationship. You know what I mean? But I feel like I kind of threw that pamphlet out the window when I started nursing.
Too. Yeah, you have to.
It's
just and I've met nurses who are like that, where they purposely disconnect.
Yeah.
They're like, listen, I have too much going on at my house, or I have, I'm just this person where I'm going to treat them, I'm going to give them meds, I'm going to do this, I'm going to educate them, whether they take it or not, I'm not really concerned, but I'm going to do my quote unquote job and then move on. And if you have to be that way, that's fine, but it's not in me personally to just take care of someone who's seriously ill or who's emotional or who can't talk and not find out what's going on or try to talk to them on an emotional level. Right. Because sometimes the physical condition happens because something emotional happened.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, they try to commit suicide, but they're in a negative space in general.
Yeah.
And as a nurse, we heal, obviously, the physical, but emotionally, what's going on? Do you need a chaplain? Do you need me to call your parents? What do you need me to do? Because I want you to obviously get better physically, but also emotionally.
Yes.
And I'm invested in anybody that's sick because being sick sucks. I meant, my son, I was supposed to give birth to him. It was supposed to be really, really normal. And it turned out to being like an emergency section. And me and my husband are crying and it's really dramatic. And it's like, medicine is emotional, especially ICU. Now, it's one thing when you're in med tele, when people come in for, if Mr. Dad wants to stay, and you don't, it's just kind of in and out. But when you deal with people who have been in ICU for 6-7 months, I don't know how people are not able to establish an emotional bond with these people because you're with them. 12 hours is a very long time.
It is.
I mean, whether you're just suctioning their mouth or just rolling them, you see the cards on the walls and the family members call. I don't know how people can't create a bond. I'm just naturally emotional since I've had my son. Before then, I was like,
maybe a little more task oriented.
Yeah, my emotions were a little more in check, and now it's like I see a lady give birth and I'm like crying, and I'm like, oh my God, congratulations, you're so excited, oh my God. And even when I walk in a patient, and whether they're 18 or 80 and I see the cards on the walls, I almost cry, because it's just like they have this great support system, and I'm so excited for them, because we have some patients that don't have a visitor and they're here for like a year.
Yes.
So the fact that they have that is just a great leg up, and I want to make sure they see the cards, that I tape it to the bed. It's just like, they're a part of your family. So I totally agree with you throwing that out the window, because that's what being a nurse is. And it's not saying you have to get, so involved where you're crying like I am, but there has to be a pull there. You have to have a draw there to me to be a good nurse anyway.
Well, and for me, it was hard initially starting out, because it was hard for me to separate those emotions and things when I would come home. I'd be at home and I'd be thinking about, the patient that just passed away, and it would, it got really hard for the first little bit.
Yes.
And then it kind of evolved into I was able to be at work and care so much for them and try to help them in everything, and then come home and also be able to be a dad and be at home and be a husband. And I don't know what the change was. I don't know if it was, seeing things more, or just kind of developing my place in the ICU and seeing those things. I don't know what it was, but you can care, and you can care significantly about these people, but you can also be effective in life, and not...
Yes, it not burden you throughout your life and kind of mess up your relationships at home. Yes, very true.
And Katie Kleber, she actually wrote a really good post on her blog at...
she's having a little one soon.
Becoming Nursey. I can't remember the name of her blog, but she wrote a blog kind of about that, like why I can't cry with you. And a lot of people took it bad as like, you don't care about your patients. But for her, more it was saying, I can be there in the room with you and care about you and care deeply about you. But in order for me to go next door and talk to the other patient who's having a great thing happening, I need to be able to be in here, be sad for you, teach you everything I can, but also, go next door. We have to wear so many hats in
Yes,
in
and
nursing.
I think that's where the school, their intentions were to express that. Like, you have to disconnect as far as you have a patient who you're withdrawing on, and then a patient who's a transplant.
Yeah.
You have to be able to kind of disconnect, because you can't walk into a patient who is positive, who's excited, who's going to be discharged,
and bring them down. Yeah, like, the guy next door just died. Yeah.
Right. You have to keep that in that little tiny bubble, and because you're on the floor, and the floor is kind of 24 hours for that 12 hours, always, all day, every day.
And it's hard, but I think that I think the schools kind of missed the boat, a little bit.
Yes.
Because that is important.
Because I think their thing is showing no emotion, and you have to show something.
You have to, because you're a human, and that's why people remember their nurse and not their doctor,
and
because the nurse is a person.
That.
Yes.
I've talked to a lot of patients that are like, well, she never looked me directly in the eye.
Yep. Yeah.
She never asked me how I was feeling. It was very mechanical, kind of machinery-esque. I was like, really? They're like, yeah, what's going on with that? I said, every nurse is different. I don't know.
I don't know. No, but you're right. That's what people complain about. Those are the complaints. The complaints aren't usually, the nurse hurt me. It's like, they didn't look at me, or they didn't ask if I needed anything.
Or he or she just started talking, and they didn't ask me if I was even paying attention. I would sleep half the time. It's just like you said, it's all about like interpersonal relationships.
Exactly.
And yes, we're just giving meds, and we're monitoring you for 12 hours, but these are still people.
Yes.
They're sitting in a bed with 3 channels. They want to talk to you. They want to know what's going on. They want to get in their chair. They want to see their grandkids. They want to know what time it is.
Mm-hmm.
That interpersonal relationship is very, very important to them.
And like you said too, I think when it was kind of your son that kind of helped you see that a little more. It was the same. My son was in the ICU or the NICU for a couple of weeks when he was born.
Aww.
Well, that was while I was in school too. So something changed in me, and then my grandfather died while I was in school, and so
oh my gosh.
I think those experiences just kind of made me realize like people hurt. Like, this is a hard time for people.
Yes, and because initially I was like, this is healthcare. I don't know why everyone's being so reacting.
Yeah.
If this is ICU and they're sick, I don't understand why everyone's being so dramatic. And then something personal happens to you, like directly, whether it's my grandmother having stroke or my son, me having the kind of not the best delivery process. Yeah. You realize that humans, we're fragile. Mm-hmm. We're delicate creatures. And when we're sick, there's more in that pot of just being sick.
Mm-hmm.
You're sick, you're not in a good space mentally, plus as a mother you're dealing with your child, or as a grandchild, my grandmother's having a stroke and I can't do anything. There's always this kind of helplessness that's kind of circling around the family. So that brings out emotions of rage and anger, and it's not directed at the medical staff. It's just a coping mechanism because they feel helpless.
They have no control,
Yeah, so once you realize that all the anger is not at you, but it's directed at you because you're there, everything goes by the wayside when it comes to dealing with family members and not taking it personally, because it's not really about me.
You're right.
Yes, I'm there and I'm getting yelled at, but it's not really about me when you look at the big picture.
And I don't know what your experience has been, but for me, a lot of times too, you'll walk into a room and the family's already irate. I mean, they're just mad.
They're already angry
and
before you walk in.
Yeah, but learning how to kind of dissipate that anger goes a long way. And I haven't had a lot of patients that have just been mad at me for the full 12 hours. I mean,
never.
Usually you walk in there, they're mad, and you're like, I understand. And I'll even maybe just briefly, not to steal their thunder, but just briefly tell them, when my son was in the ICU, it was really hard for me. I know how you feel. And that quickly makes them realize, like, okay, he gets it.
He gets it. Yeah. He cares, and he understands how crazy this time is for me.
Yeah.
Because that's something I think a lot of people don't understand, that ICU is the worst time of all. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's the first day or the day you're being discharged. You're still relatively sick.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going home anytime soon.
Right.
So, I mean, if people are complaining about nurses laughing at the station, I'm irritated. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, that's, we should probably quit laughing and close the door.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, well, I'm up and I'm working and they need to calm down.
Yes. Yeah.
You need to understand that this is the worst, maybe not the worst moment in their life, but this is definitely a moment that they're going to look back and remember as being a bad one.
Absolutely.
Respect that, understand where they are emotionally, and just try to do what you can to help them.
You're right. Yeah.
But realize that, when my husband was having his heart attack and nurses were laughing at 11 o'clock at night, that irritated me because I am not in a good spot.
Yes.
So every time a family member says that to me, I try to understand that, you're having a good time. And it might be out of a slight bit of jealousy, but understand what's going on in their life and just try to make that transition and that horrible time in life a little bit easier by complying with what they want if you can.
You're right. And I'm glad we had that conversation, because I don't think it's had often enough. And I think that, most of us coming out of school, a lot of people coming out of school are 20, 21-year-olds that, their biggest concern is they don't want to work weekends because they want to go out and party and stuff. And that's fine. And that's fine. But when you come to work, just try to think of a time, or it can be hard, but try to think of that patient as your grandma. And what would, we see it every day. Every time we're at work, we see sick people. Like you said, these people, this is the only time they might ever be in the hospital.
So true.
And we need to realize, like, this is something different for them.
Yes, because some people think, well, I'm at work and I'm having a good day, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But understand where you are and understand your place in the world.
Absolutely.
You're at a place where everyone's completely miserable.
Yes.
And if you're going to be working in that dynamic, you have to kind of respect the kind of emotional presence that it brings. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying come to work miserable, but you need to understand that it requires a certain level of professionalism to deal with sick, angry, upset, frustrated, annoyed people for 12 hours.
Yes.
And like you said, it starts out rough. You explain to them what your plan of care is going to be. You're going to be positive. You're going to be there for them. And usually 99% of the time, they just want to know that you're there. Yeah. That's it. They might have had a bad experience with the previous nurse, or the doctor might have said something that they thought was inappropriate, or no one's listening to them. Sometimes they just want to talk. And you might be busy, but I'd rather talk to a family member for 15 minutes than them be mad at me for an entire shift.
Boom. You know what? That's the first thing I say to new nurses and students when I precept. They come in and I say, I want you to go into the room, take even just 5 minutes, and tell them what you're going to do. If you have a CT scan at 4 a.m, tell them that. So at 3:30 when you go wake them up, they're not like, what the heck's going, tell them everything that's going to happen throughout the night, what's going to happen. And that 5 minutes is going to save you hours later.
It's going to save you so much drama and frustration.
So if nothing else, just do it for yourself to save yourself time.
Yeah, because I just got out of the hospital, and mind you, I'm a nurse. I work a night shift. Dude, they wake you up every hour and a half. I'm like, what do you want?
Exactly.
We got to draw blood. We got to give you meds. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
We got to go down here to chest x-ray. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you never sleep. But when you're working, you're like, oh, they're sleeping. It's all good. You have all the lights on. The TV's like on max. You forget that, like, they want to sleep.
Yes.
but you have a job to do.
Right.
And if you go in and explain, hey, in 2 hours I got to wake you up, I'm really sorry. I'd rather hear that than you just pop on all the lights and like
time to go to
frustrate me
CT.
completely.
Yeah, start moving things around, and yes,
It's
I agree
it's
with
all
that.
about the disposition and your approach to people.
Yes. So let's talk real quickly. I want to talk about your YouTube channel and your blog. Why don't you tell us about those and kind of what your goal was starting those and where you hope to see those go?
Well, when I started my YouTube blog, I first started when I was in my nursing program, and it was going to be just like a blog, just in case I didn't pass this thing, I could look back and be like, well, you did all you could,
Worked hard.
and you read all the assignments, so if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And I took it one day at a time, literally. When it came to nursing, I had no background, so it wasn't as if I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to graduate. This is going to be great. It was literally like, hope it passes test.
I hear you.
Hope it passes clinical. And every blog was just like a kind of hurrah, like, oh my God, I passed. Thank gosh, thank gosh. But most of the videos were like, oh, I barely passed. I barely went through clinical, because nursing school is the hardest thing that I have ever had to do academically. I thought, oh, the human body, how hard can it be? Nursing is just, it's so complex.
Yes.
The disease processes are so complex. You have to do one thing before you do another, or all the interventions are appropriate, but this one has to be done before the other three. And it was way more difficult than I thought. So then after I started progressing, it turned into, I just want to help people, because this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And if this is a profession that needs nurses due to this kind of national shortage, I want as many as that I can get, because, no one's getting any younger.
Right.
I'm not going to be a nurse forever. The nurse who just graduated is not going to be a nurse forever. I don't know about your area, but here in Orlando, Florida, the average time for a bedside nurse is 2 years and they're gone. Now that people know that, oh, if I can work for ICU for a year, go to CRNA, I'm not going to be doing bedside for 10 years.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Get out of there.
So they're getting out of bedside quicker, on top of the other nurses aging out just because of retirement. So there's still that big gap. So I wanted to do a video, a channel rather, that's going to help people just progress through, so that we have more kind of players on the field in the future.
One of your most popular videos is why new nurses are quitting. Why I watched briefly the video and everything. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of going on to bigger, better things, or burnout, or what?
It's a little bit of both. When I started on the PCU floor, half of my group left immediately, and I was like, "What?"
Wow. Like left nursing,
that
or
was
left
like,
the
yeah,
hospital?
just
Wow.
left. They just went away.
Jeez.
And then when I text messaged them, they're like, "Oh, I don't like this. This is not what I thought this was going to be."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What do you mean it wasn't what you were going to be?" I mean, yes, you get that shock of, I got to give 5 patients 9 o'clock pills all before 9, and they're all, in older age, so they're all about 10 pills each. And, when it comes to older people, they want to know what you're giving them. So you're spending about 15 minutes in the room.
At home, mine's a pink one. Why is it blue here? I don't want to take the pink one.
Yeah, at my house, this one's purple. I don't want this one. So it's kind of like a daily argument.
That is why I didn't work med-surg. During my first med-surg clinical, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
It's not going to work. In PCU, how am I giving 15 pills to 5 people before 9 o'clock, and it's 8:15 already?
It's incredibly... I don't know how people do it.
I don't know how they do it. The patients alone, I'm like, oh my gosh. And you're on a timetable, and you have to do hourly rounding, and you have to continue everything else. So I get that was a shock to people, but some of them were like, the academic part and what they wanted me to do, it did not seem feasible. And I totally understand that. Yes, you learned in nursing school, it's going to be applicable at some, but the time management should definitely be some sort of course in nursing school.
Yes.
Because you could get straight, but you just fail and bomb and, get rich because you're not doing all the running.
You're starting to break up just a little bit.
Yeah, they have either some sort of workshop or something on the reality of time management. Because, yes, you could be a really good nurse, but if you can't pass meds in an appropriate time frame, or you can't bathe your patients or get your day figured out fairly quickly, you're not going to be successful.
Right. I was actually going to talk to you about that, because I'm sure it's the same with you on your YouTube channel and everything, that one of the questions I get more than almost anything is that students are struggling with time management, whether that's studying in school or working on the floor. What are your tips for time management?
It starts with having organizational tool, whether that's a documentation sheet of how you run your day, or a list of vital signs, or when your next pain meds are due. You have to have a sheet of paper that's going to help you. Now, as the months go by, I can now do that in my head. But if you're a student, you have to have an organizational tool that's going to get you through your day.
Yes.
Because you're not going to be able to remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did I was an adjunct faculty member just for a couple of weeks, and a lot of students were like, I forgot to do this. I forgot to chart. I did an assessment, but I didn't chart it. I gave these meds. I didn't chart it. You have to, it sounds stupid, but if you have to have a box that writes document now, create the box.
Yes.
Because there is so much going on. There are so many interruptions in your day. You're going to have a paper to look back on and say, what have I done and what do I need to do? Because your life as a nurse is full of interruptions.
And I think everyone's going to find a different sheet that kind of works best for them. Because I tried in nursing school, I probably downloaded 50 or 60 different kinds. And it wasn't until I started working and my preceptor showed me one that really worked well for me. So
yes, and I ended up creating like 4 or 5 on my own. And I tell everyone, this isn't something that you're going to be able to buy. Or you might download it. It might work for you for like a day. And then you're like, I got to change a few things. But it's best if you create your own because you know what you need and you know what works for you. Whether you carry one sheet with all patients on it or it's one sheet per patient, whatever gets you to what you need to do and where you need to be at the end of the day. Because nothing is worse than working 12 hours and then you're looking and then you have to work another 2 hours because you didn't chart.
Right. And whether that, get into Excel, make something real easy, get into Word, make something, or even just write it on a piece of paper. What I kind of do now, and like it's progressed a lot, but what I have now is I just have a sheet of paper folded in half, one patient on each side. I write their basic history, and then like on the bottom I write, blood sugars Q4 and CT at 4 o'clock, like the big things I need to remember. Yeah. But then, like you said, that comes with time because as I see a bunch of ischemic strokes, I kind of know what's going to happen with those patients.
Exactly, and you know how your day is going to go and what you're going to have to do. Like now that I work a night shift, I know all my meds are given at 9, midnight, and then 3 o'clock. Exactly. I can knock a bath out between midnight and 3. I can probably go lunch between 1 and 3. Yeah. And it's like the more you're in that routine and seeing that the same disease process, you know how your day is going to go versus a student who has no point of reference at all.
Right. And so get something, work with it, keep working with it. If a paper doesn't work for you initially, try a new one, adjust what doesn't work. Because the learning that time management is the most important thing, I think.
And a lot of students complain like, I study and I do, so when I come to clinical, it's the time management. Learning to manage your time is going to be something that you're going to have to perfect away from textbooks, away from school, and at your house. Yes. You're not going to be able to just clock in and be ready to go. If you've had no prep whatsoever and being organized and having a paper and things like that, it's not going to go well. Right. You're going to have to invest some of your personal time. Sadly, I know it's irritating, but you're going to have to take a day off and chill at the house and just create this form so that on Monday and Tuesday you're ready to go and you're successful.
And it's the same
because it doesn't happen by accident.
Right. It's the same thing we talked about though. The first thing you do on your shift is go in and tell the patient what's going to happen. It's this whole preparation is going to save you a ton of time in the end. Yes. But don't just go to clinical and wing it. Like you're just going to end up getting worse grades and being caught up longer.
And it's stressful for you because it's like, I know these students, they want to study, they have all this time, they have to pass exams and all these databases and all these concept maps. And I get that part, but if you do not figure out how to manage your time, it is going to hurt you at some point.
Big time.
Maybe not initially because, you're a GN and you have a preceptor and they're kind of helping you balance your day out and they're helping you keep on track. But when you're by yourself, I don't think sometimes students understand that you're like an independent contractor. You're solo. Unless you have a question or you are about to kill somebody, nobody's walking up to you and checking on you. Right. Everyone hopes you gave your meds on time because no one's checking on your electronic mark.
You assume it,
Right. Yeah. They hope you got your patient out of the bed. They hope you did the bath because you haven't asked me any questions, so I'm assuming it's all good.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if you have a really good charge nurse and a tech, that's one thing, but no one's checking on you. You are the director of this show, and you determine whether your patient has a good day or a bad day, depending on the actions that you do or what you don't do.
And that was, when I started charging, that was one of my biggest fears. It's like, how am I going to keep track of what everybody's doing? And I realized quickly, that's not my job. My job as charger is to be a resource, but I'm not going to be able to go in and be like, did they get their CT done? That's your job to let me know. Right. And so as a nurse, you're there alone for 12 hours and everybody assumes you're going to do a good job. Yes. So, yeah.
The assumption is you have it handled unless you tell me you don't.
Yes, exactly.
So don't assume that everyone's going to be rushing over to help you because like your friend, they have other patients too.
You got to speak up. Yeah.
And I tell my friends, I love you to death, but between midnight and 1, I'm giving a bath. So don't talk to me.
Touch
I mean,
me.
yeah, we can talk and chit chat. I'm one of those people that when I come to work, I come dead serious.
Yeah.
I got to find out what's going on before I can start. Before we have these social conversations.
I got to have my stuff in line. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to know what's going on with my patient, when my meds are due, when can I eat, and then we can talk. Because my friends are always like, you come to work and you seem so mad and you don't really want to talk. I said, I have to get in my war face. I have to get ready to go here.
But let me ask you this. Are you out of work on time most days?
Oh, yes.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're at 7:08, man, I'm out. You know?
Oh, yes, I don't play around. I don't play around. I'm not staying any later. 12 hours is enough.
Yes.
There's these people that are like, oh, my gosh, I forgot to give this. I got to draw some labs. Girl, it is 7:30. What are you doing?
I'm in my car, man. I'm on the freeway already at that time.
Yeah, I will text message you from my bath at my house. I was going to help you out, but I see it's just due to your error.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you drown here.
If you need,
and I will see you tomorrow night because you're a mess.
If you need help with your 4 o'clock labs at 4 o'clock, I'm there, you know. 7:30, it's a little late.
It's a little late. How do you forget to draw? And it's like, I've been a nurse for a couple of years now. After 6 months, you should have a routine.
Yeah.
There should not be a reason why you're forgetting labs and like out of bed at 6 a.m. and rounding with doctors at 6:30. I have a system to where I go home on time.
Yes.
When I give reports, it's systematic, it's in order, and I always get out on time.
Yeah.
I've seen people, they're like, oh my God, I was here till like 9 a.m. Are you out of your entire mind? 9 a.m. doing what?
I know what you're doing.
I had to catch up on charting. Are you crazy?
And I've never worked in like a big med-surg where you had 5 patients or anything. Maybe in there I could maybe understand it, but like
maybe
in ICU you got 2 patients, man. It takes me 5 to 15 minutes to do a full assessment.
We've had downtime charting where the computers were down from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. and I still got out on time. Like, how are you getting out at 9 a.m.?
You sound like me. Because, there's sometimes where the manager will ask me, she's like, so this nurse was here till 10 o'clock. What do you think about their assignment? I was like, I stand by the assignment. I think anybody else could have been out on time. Like,
right?
You got to have your system. And that's kind of what we were saying, again, too. Like, this is something you can start developing as early as in nursing school. Like, start working on your system and adjust it as you go so that you're getting out on time, you're getting things done when they need to be done. And you're not, if you see things falling, it's time to change your system or figure something else out.
Yes, because please believe that those people that stay late won't be doing that forever because as a manager, I have to do something about that.
Right. You're going to start talking to them like, what's going on?
I don't want to keep paying you overtime because you don't know what you're doing.
Right. I mean,
so let's find out what's wrong, and then if that requires you getting written up or there being some situation where you can't handle the setting, that's also going to be a consequence.
Sure,
so
exactly.
People who stay late, I mean, we all have our problems, but understand that at the point your manager's going to be like,
consistently,
what's up?
Yeah. If it's consistent, you need to start noticing that yourself before it goes to there. And that's kind of part of the thing that we were saying of like, with nursing, you're pretty much alone the whole time. And so you really need to be self-reflective about what am I having a hard time with, what I need to work on, and then being humble enough to go to your manager or a charge nurse or a friend and just say like, look, how you draw in cultures, because for whatever reason, it's taken me, whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, when I started ICU from PCU, I was like, whoa, this is not, I don't know if I can do this. This is crazy. How do I go from walkie-talkie to just completely like paralyzed, IV drips everywhere. The IV drips are running out every hour and a half. I'm running dry. My pressure's tanking. Like, I did not have a system. And it literally takes you realizing that, okay, I'm not good at this. I gotta either got to ask for help or I need somebody to help me and explain their system to me. And it took me to ask 3 or 4 nurses and get yelled at a few times to understand that you cannot let a vasopressor run dry. This is something that you cannot do.
Yes.
It's one thing if it happens by accident, but it better not happen again because this is causing problems with your patient. Right. While you're on your lunch break or you're in the bathroom.
Right.
And people are always like, well, nurses got to pee and nurses got to eat. Well, that doesn't matter if your patient dies.
Right.
And in all honesty, if your vasopressor runs out while you're in the bathroom or you're eating, that is not an excuse.
No,
you have 12 hours to find a time to eat. That is not a concern to a patient who's almost dying.
Exactly. Well, it sounds like we have a lot of. We're gonna have to talk again because it sounds like we have a lot of.
Because we ran a bit long here.
No, because I love nursing. I love nurses. I love all of it. But man, some of the excuses and things that I hear, I'm just like, stop. Just no. That's not okay. Like
and like you said, it's usually younger nurses who haven't really had like a critical issue in their life, or they haven't seen, like I had my grandfather who was in the hospital and he got too much insulin, so he almost passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And the excuse was, oh yeah, but the MAR told me to do this.
No.
But yeah, he hadn't eaten all day. He hadn't had any insurance all day. Like that. Not that they lack critical thinking, but they just do things because they're told to do it, and they don't really consider the entire picture before something happens.
Yes, and that's like a whole nother like conversation there, because that's one thing that really kind of gets to me is I call them like nurses that just check boxes. Like, don't become a box checking nurse.
Yes.
And I guess that whole conversation we just had about getting a system and getting it all done, like that's one thing, but when we say that, we're not saying like get all these boxes and check them. Like if your patient is not stable enough to go to CT, don't go to the CT. Like, it's not time to go to the CT.
Oh, you do not know how many times that's happened. Why, if your patient's on 4 vasopressors and they're sedated and they're paralyzed, why are you going down to CT right now?
Like, that's not a concern.
Well, the doctor wanted to do it. It's a stack. Well, did you explain that they're unstable?
Yes.
Well, no. You have to create the picture.
Yes.
The doctor does not know what's happening, and they're like, no, but they saw them yesterday.
No, well,
I'm
hello.
telling you,
You're an ICU.
out of sight, out of mind. If you do not explain this critical situation, this blood pressure that you've been chasing all day, and you're sweating, and you have 3 bags of Levo in your pocket because you run out every 45 minutes and you're maxed out.
You're not taking them on an elevator, sliding them across to CT.
Taking them on an elevator, sliding them across. I'm like, what is going on here?
It's not going to happen.
But I guess that comes with time when you're comfortable to tell someone this is unsafe.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not comfortable with doing this.
And you don't want to be. You don't want your patient to code in a CT. I mean, it's not a pretty code. We've been there. We've seen it.
It's not a pretty code, and it's happened, and I've seen it, and it's terrible.
Yes.
And it's just like, you're the only, where I work at, there's a transporter in you.
Yeah. And then,
the CT people are there, but they don't know ACLS. No. So it's literally you until somebody finds you in whatever CT you're in, because there's 38 CT rooms.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like once you put yourself in that compromising situation, to me, you take charge of it.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be taking charge of a situation that could have been delayed or just ignored if I would have expressed how unsafe the situation was. And sometimes doctors are like, if somebody would have told me that this was the situation,
obviously
I would have told you to forget it. The scan is important, but it's not as important as the current critical state this patient's in.
And you're and I mean, there's so much that we could talk about with all of these, because a whole nother conversation again too is just how to and to talk to physicians and all that. So I mean, we're gonna have to talk again for sure, Nacole.
Yeah,
this is
because sometimes a doctor's like, I have been on vacation for a week and a half. I just heard about this patient. So whatever you tell me is literally what I know. But if you don't tell me anything, I'm assuming everything's fine.
Yes. And right. I mean, if you're talking to a house physician who's taking care of 300 patients, I mean, they don't.
Exactly.
There's no way they have a clue what's going on your floor.
There's no way.
Yeah. So So we're at about an hour now. So,
oh, God. I was like, why is my ear sweating?
Yeah, I know, right? So tell me just really quickly to end, and we are going to have to talk again, or we're going to have to do some YouTube videos or something together, because it seems like we have a lot of the same viewpoints on nursing. And
yes,
I
do.
Appreciate that. Tell me really quick, let's see, what one thing would you tell a new nursing student or a new nurse to help them on their journey?
When you see a bedside nurse and they're doing great and they're doing awesome and they're knowing these signs and symptoms so quickly and they're moving so rapidly and they're not dropping, the ball at all, understand that comes with time. Mm-hmm. So many times nursing students are so hard on themselves. I don't understand. And they get so emotional and so involved in them making one mistake.
Yeah.
And yes, if it's a big mistake, I want you to feel that. I want it to hit your core. I want you to never forget it. But you're not going to be able to be this rock star that you see right now because she's been a nurse for 10 years. Mm-hmm. You have to give yourself time. Your goals have to be realistic. So yes, you will get there, but understand that this did not happen overnight. This is through a lot of long days, a lot of lessons, and you weren't there for those particular experiences. So cut yourself a break, give yourself time, and you'll get there soon, but just not all at once.
That's very well said, and I agree 100% with that. Where can people find you, and any other last parting words of advice?
You can find me on YouTube, just Nurse Nacole, or I have my blog at nursenacole.com. And to all the nursing students out there, it is a really, really long, really, really tough journey. But when you become a nurse, it is definitely, definitely worth it. I could not see myself doing anything else. Every time I see a nursing student, it is a positive experience to me. Do not let a nurse who is having a negative day or a negative frame of mind impact who you want to be and where you want to go in life, because the world needs more nurses. No one lives forever, and people are chronically and always sick. So do not give up on your dream. You will get there, and I wish you all the best of luck. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Thanks for listening to the NRSNG NCLEX Prep Podcast.